We'll start now. Wherever you're coming from, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's program information session on the Leading Urban Change, Accelerating Housing and Transportation Solutions. My name is Magda Shulman, and I'm one of the program coordinators at the School of Cities. We are very excited to have you here and to share more about our program, the opportunities it offers, and how it can help you achieve your goals. To begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items to ensure we have a productive session. First off, right off the bat, today's session will be recorded. Please make sure that your microphones are muted to avoid any sort of background noise, and feel free to type your questions into the chat box throughout the session. There will be a dedicated session, a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and our speakers will do the very best they can to address all of your questions. And you can also, during that end portion, during the Q&A session, use the raise hand function to verbally ask your questions to the speakers. And lastly, we really encourage active participation during the session. We want to help you out and help you understand what this program is all about. So please engage respectfully and be mindful of others in the session. The University of Toronto values freedom of speech, but individuals demonstrating inappropriate language or behavior will be removed from the session. And I will drop a link in the chat that showcases the university's policies when it comes to the disruption of meetings. Now, the Leading Urban Change program is facilitated by three incredible individuals. Karen Chapple, who is the director of the School of Cities and professor of geography and planning at the University of Toronto. Lisa Helps, who's the executive lead at BC Builds, the former housing solution advisor to the BC Premier, as well as being the former mayor of Victoria herself, and Numan Ashraf, who wasn't able to join us today, but he's the associate professor of organizational behavior and human resource management at Rotman. Today, we're joined by Karen Chapple, who is coming to us from Treaty 13, the traditional lands of the Huron-Wendat, Seneca, and Mississaugas of the Credit, and continues to be the gathering place of many Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples across Turtle Island. And Lisa Helps, who is coming to you from Victoria, BC, which is located on the traditional territories of the Lekonen-speaking peoples, also known as the Songhees Nations and Esquimalt Nation. As we envision the future of our cities, we encourage doing so with values of reconciliation, equity, and justice in mind. With all that being said, all that rigmarole, I'm going to turn the floor over to Karen Chapple.
Great. Thank you so much, Magda, and welcome everybody. We're so glad to be with you today and learn of your interest in leading urban change, which we're all passionate about, making the best, most sustainable, equitable cities we can. So what is leading urban change? Well, it's part of our portfolio of professional development programs at the School of Cities of the University of Toronto. We have run it a couple times in the past. It's been very well received. And it's we have a number of other programs as well that are related. We've been doing work with housing innovators for CMHC, and we have a program on data storytelling. And it's just all part of our mission to get folks back to school and reflecting on their experience in the middle of their career as practitioners, because you are most likely hitting a point where you're feeling like your original education is not serving you, and you need to kind of make the space, take some time out from the hectic workday to reflect on what are the barriers you're experiencing, and how you can kind of reboot. And so if that's you, then Leading Urban Change is the program for you. It's a program that is mostly in person. It's about 2/3 in person. The heart of the program is 2 days, October 20th and 21st, where we will get together and work on building a framework for thinking about problem solving and for building our support networks. And then we follow that with 3 sessions that are online, and that will be with housing and transportation experts in finance and in governance and innovation and in partnerships. And then we culminate the experience with your presentation. So we want to have you go on a journey here with us and have a product at the end. So, and the other main thing that we ought to talk about is who you are. So you are a housing or transportation professional or someone working in land use and the built environment, generally interested in housing and transportation. You work for the private sector, the not-for-profit sector, the public sector. We'll take you all, but we want you to have some years of experience in addressing problems and be at a point where you're kind of stuck and you want to you know what can be done, but you just need kind of some help getting the tools to move forward. So that's about the program. We're going to be discussing the program more today, but while we're talking, it would be great if you could take a moment and share in the chat what you feel is the biggest challenge in accelerating housing and transportation challenges in your work. So thinking about what has where are you feeling stuck, and in what should we be working on when we talk about accelerating housing and transportation solutions. And it's already coming in, cost and financing models, 100%. Resources is always the top one on our list, and just mechanisms for getting resources. I'm gonna stop talking for a second, transition over to Lisa. Keep putting in the chat, but I want Lisa to introduce herself and get engaged here.
Great. Good morning, everyone. It's morning for me here in beautiful British Columbia, so I will say good morning and good afternoon to those of you who are in another time zone. Thanks for putting all of your information in the chat, because this is precisely why we designed this program. I see here development, process, and approvals, building community amenities around housing. As Karen says, we've run Leading Urban Change twice. Once was a general course on anyone leading urban change. And then our spring cohort, which just wrapped up in June, was very deliberately focused on housing. And the group really was grappling it. And just to really stress, this course is for people who are working on projects in community having to do with housing and transportation, how to accelerate those opportunities. And what we deliver together with the visiting experts is real support and real advice and real resources for real projects. So just really wanted to get that out there at the beginning. There actually is quite a bit of theory in the course, but it's all aimed at helping you go back to your communities after you've come together as a cohort and deliver real change and real action in your community. So that's why I love the course so much. I think I'm supposed to be introducing myself in this section, and then Karen and I are going to awkwardly interview each other a little bit. And then we're going to show a video of one of our past participants. And then the most important thing about this session together is taking your questions. We want to make sure that you leave this info session with everything you need in terms of understanding what the course is, what will happen, who's going to be coming to help support as visiting experts from across the country, and most importantly, what you're going to get out of it. So as I was already introduced, my name's Lisa. I'm currently running a program in British Columbia called BC Builds, and we have a mandate to deliver housing quickly. So generally it takes 3 to 5 years to move a project from hey, we've got a concept and we'd like to build housing, and then it's 3 to 5 years later where the buildings start. Our program actually launched in February of 2024, and I just counted this morning. We've already got 12 projects under construction in that short time, and that's homes across British Columbia. So that's what I am doing right now, and so I bring that lens of acceleration, working in community, working on land use approvals, working with municipalities, working with financiers, And then before that, I worked as the Premier's Housing Solutions Advisor during a time when British Columbia was doing some really interesting work to change legislation and of relevance to this course to implement transit-oriented areas. So housing and transit are now in British Columbia legislated together. Happy to talk more about that during the course. And then before that, I was spent 8 very entertaining, enlightening, inspiring, and challenging years as Mayor of Victoria, including during the pandemic. And so it's really those 3 hats and those 3 kind of sets of learnings that I bring to the course when we all get together once we start in the fall. So Karen, I think I'll hand it back to you with that brief introduction of myself.
That's great. And it's so exciting to see all the comments in the chat and all the issues that we have to work on around these topics. We have gotten very interested in how we better integrate housing and transportation solutions. And one of the things we've learned in the past working this course is that some of the most meaningful moments come from working across sectors. And that can be in working in different domains like housing or transportation or social planning or what have you, but or working across sectors. And transit-oriented development is one of the stickiest problems we have. And it's in Canada in particular, we've seen a lack of real thoughtful integrated land use housing transportation models driving our development. And even if we seem to be even more siloed in Canada than some other places. So we want to make sure that that people working in the Canadian context have access to the very best expertise, creative thinking, problem solving around how to build equitable housing into every transit project, and vice versa, how to make sure that every transit project is connected in some way to homes and housing. So Lisa, let me ask you about the program, what you think the program can do, particularly in terms of helping our participants overcome obstacles and make progress towards change in their work and their community.
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Karen. And this is, the first time we ran this info session for the first course we ever taught, it was completely theoretical. We said, this is what we think learners will get out of this course. But now that we've been through it twice, and particularly the most recent cohort, which was really focused on housing, I think they got a number of key things out of the course. And I'll just talk a little bit about each one and why I think it's important. The first one is a network. It was really interesting after the 2 days of in-person learning. It was 4:30. It was a beautiful day in June. We were in a relatively stuffy classroom and no one was leaving. No one was running out the door, like saying goodbye. That was very nice. And I know, having stayed in touch with some of the members of the cohort, that they are staying in touch with each other. They're supporting each other. And as Karen said, in that course, we had people, we had architects, we had real estate agents, we had people working on youth homelessness, people working in municipalities. So that I don't think I've worked in this space for a long time and in many different ways. I haven't quite seen that kind of public-private civil society network come together. So that's really critical. The other thing that and we'll share a little bit more in a moment about who these folks are, but we've convened a group of experts on, as Karen said earlier, on finance, on governance, and on partnership building, that are there not just to deliver that 2-hour session, but they've agreed to be resources for you. And again, in our last cohort, we made connections between the visiting experts who came and did their sessions and are really offer a lot in that moment, but then also offer to our learners to stay connected and to help troubleshoot or have a side conversation. So that's another key. And then I think the third thing which is, I mean, they're all important, but both or all of Karen Newman and I are interested not just in the action that needs to be taken in communities to deliver urban change, particularly here on housing and transportation, but also what are the kind of key ways of thinking about the actions we take. So Newman is just an amazing instructor. He really gets us to think about why and how we're doing what we're doing. He puts some theory and some really great pedagogy around leading urban change. Karen, same from a very different perspective. And then mine is a bit more kind of on the ground theory, but what's worked and what hasn't in terms of my own experiences and sharing some case studies. So you get expert experience, expert I guess, access to experts in addition to what they offer at the classroom, the theoretical, action-oriented practitioner approach from Karen Newman and I, and then the network itself, the group of people who sign up for and take the course. I think those are all really key benefits. Karen, I have a question for you now. And as I said, Karen and I are awkwardly interviewing each other because we've kind of gotten to know each other well and know how each other are going to answer some of these questions. But we also wanted to not just be a bunch of talking heads up here. So, Karen, we really saw clearly with our last cohort that while we, of course, taught and learned on the topic of housing, we also talked a lot about values and how values drive projects. So can you tell us a little bit, both in terms of how you're going to deliver the materials in the course, but also in your own experience of taking a values-led approach to leading urban change?
Yeah, I think we give you multiple frameworks in this class, and one of them is to really dig down and identify the values that are behind the change you want to see. And the values that the community holds, and sort of tapping into where are the common lines, what do we all believe, what are we all trying to achieve, and trying to find that language to communicate that. And this is really hard as urban professionals, because what you've been focused on in your career is, oh, I need to get this policy, I need to get this parcel of land, I need to get this financing lined up. But your project isn't really about that. Your project is fundamentally about making a better world that we can all believe in and thrive in. And sometimes we lose sight of that as professionals. And that is so that's where we start here in this program, is to reflect, to think about where are people coming from, what will resonate with them, what is the thread that holds us all together. And with that we can then kind of move forward and scaffold a set of steps that can move your specific project forward. So I think we should talk a little bit more about the outcomes of this program, and Lisa already mentioned the network that you come out with, and these are people that often you would never have crossed paths. And we actually have we've had one in our last cohort. I think there was somebody that got a funder through this program, that actually met somebody that will help move their model forward. But one of the other things you get, because we're a university, so you get a certificate. So you come out with a credential, with a new credential, which is an asset, which is something that you can use moving forward in your own career. Another kind of tool you come out with, and this really comes from Lisa's work, I think, is this the idea of soft power, and how to find your own soft power, and then how to deploy it effectively. And Lisa, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about soft power.
Sure. I do. I also want to talk about, actually, I want to save the soft power for the course because it's not something that can be explained in 2 minutes. And also I want to entice people to join us for the course so they can learn more about deploying soft power. That's not the real reason, of course. If it was a quick thing to explain, I would do it now. But I want to share two other things that kind of I was thinking about while Karen was talking. One, Karen said earlier something about taking a step back from being embedded in your organization or in your daily work. One of the things that's really interesting about this program is it allows you to take a step back and a step in at the same time. And what I mean by that, one of the exercises that I think the cohort last time felt was quite valuable, and this happens during the in-person workshop or in-person days, and it's one of the workshops that I lead, is developing a map of your project. So while you're away from your workplace, you're away from your colleagues, we have everyone come together and work individually at first, and based on this soft power concept, which I explain, and about obstacles and what kind of obstacles they are and what are the leverage points, et cetera. And folks, you make a map of your project, and then we pair you with somebody who also has their own map of their own project, and ask you to go through a series of questions with each other. And it was really like, it was so amazing to watch that unfold, because people, that would never be sitting together working on each other's projects, the level of insight that they were getting from each other. But then we had some time at the end of the day where we were sending off people in teams to meet with coaches, which we'll do again. So you'll get some one-on-one coaching as well, which I think is important to mention. But then people came back to their maps. They went back to their maps. They went back to their partners, and they fleshed them out even more. So that map of your project, in terms of what are the obstacles, what are the challenges, what are the actions you're going to take to overcome them, that map is a tangible asset that you go back to your workplace or to your community with. So that's, I guess, another offering of the course that I think the last group of learners found was quite important. Do we want to share, Karen, a bit now about who are these experts that we keep gesturing to? I think we've got a slide ready to go that has their names there, so folks can see who we're talking about.
Yeah, that would be great if Magda, you can pull up that slide. So
Yep.
we put a lot of thought into who to invite to work with you all, we have one go-to here. Actually, under partnership, both of these have become our go-tos. So Maddie Simatiki, you may have heard him speak because he is a frequent media commentator, but he works with our learners on partnering and really thinking hard about different types of collaboration, and particularly for complex projects, and complex in terms of finance, in terms of governance. What are the kind of fundamentals of relationships you need to have in place to make those projects sing? So he is an amazing teacher on that front. And then there's Fran. Lisa, do you want to talk about Fran?
I will. And yeah, Fran does have a loose affiliation with the University of Victoria, but actual title and what she spent the last decade doing is she's the executive director of the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness on Vancouver Island. She's worked with Indigenous members of the Indigenous street family who have experienced homelessness, and to literally design a whole program and a whole organization around their needs. It's absolutely incredible. And what she's coming to speak about is working through challenges, developing unexpected partnerships. And I'll give a little signal about this, and then Fran will come and speak with all of the learners and put her own I guess expertise and energy around this. But just to give an example of unexpected partnerships. So when Fran was starting up the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness in 2016, she went and interviewed members of the street community and said, what do you need? what's keeping you stuck, and how can we help? Basically those three questions. And one of the things that she heard is one of the biggest barriers was the VicPD, Victoria Police Department, of course, right? There's a historical challenging set of relationships between Indigenous people and police. And so what Fran did is went to the police chief and said, hey, Indigenous people who are homeless, experiencing homelessness, they see your department as a barrier. What can we do together? Over the next decade, the chief and his staff and Fran and her staff worked to develop a really heartfelt relationship that was based on common understandings and shared understanding. So again, this course is not about homelessness. This course is not about Indigenous homelessness, but Fran comes to really share her light and her expertise on how do we make these really, really difficult partnerships, these unexpected partnerships across, in some cases, vast divides, because those kinds of things strengthen all projects, housing and transportation projects, transit-oriented communities, and just good community building. So that's the role that Fran will bring, and some of the expertise that she'll offer to us.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you to speak also about our governance and finance experts. I'll just say that we have invited folks to bring a diversity of perspectives from a diversity of different work backgrounds and different geographies, and they will be working with you in breakout groups, trying to lend their expertise to your particular issues.
Yeah, so I won't go into each person in each of these sessions. You can Google them or follow them on LinkedIn. And if you're planning on signing up for the course, you can follow them on LinkedIn and let them know you're looking forward to working with them coming in the fall. So in governance, we really wanted to look at 3 different scenarios. So we have Toronto, and then Vancouver through TransLink, and then Los Angeles. And again, if you're coming from a smaller place, don't be intimidated by the fact that these folks are coming from larger places. Before they come to speak with you, for those who register, we'll have a sense of your projects, we'll have a sense of who you are. We sit down with these experts, we go through your projects, we say, these are who our learners are, and ask them to tailor their remarks to all of you and to your projects very specifically. So those are the folks in governance. And then finance, we really wanted to have a blend of housing finance, mobility finance, and then Charles Todd from the Infrastructure Bank of Canada, Canada Infrastructure Bank. They're really doing a blend of housing and transportation finance. So those sessions will be structured with a little bit of upfront information and presentations from them, about 15 minutes each of a 2-hour session. And then it'll be your opportunity to go into breakout rooms with them and really deep dive on topics of your interest. And then, as I said earlier, these folks are not just available to you for the time that they're in the classroom with you, but they've offered to have follow-up conversations as needed. So that's those are the folks that will be coming from across the country and beyond to help us deliver the course.
Great. Thank you for that. And so we have a question from Jessica. We're about to go to more question and answer time, but Jessica asked how many people in a cohort. We keep it small. We could have as many as 25, but we're likely to have around 20. It's a sweet size, so enough for you to get to know everybody in some way. While you're thinking about your questions, I want to have Magda queue up a perspective that one of our learners gave on this program. It's a video clip from a participant in this past spring in the program to help you understand.
Leading urban change is important right now because I think we are in a moment that sort of feels inevitable, and the systems that govern the moment feel invisible. This brings those things out into the light and forces us to examine them with knowledge and with data, but also with colleagues who have seen it from a slightly different angle, and really brings to the surface the fact that none of this is inevitable and all of those systems can be changed. It focuses on the human element of our work together and makes us think about how we can collaborate when we go back home. The way we work together matters as much as the work that we do together. I value the combination of online and in-person learning because as much as I would love it to all be in person, I am busy. I have a lot of stuff to do. And so this lets me get the benefit of that real in-person joy and learning and still be able to do my job. You can't be in this program and not feel jazzed up about what you're doing. This program really feels both theoretical and big picture and very small and actionable. Like there is a clear bridge between what I'm learning today and what I'm doing tomorrow. This program is so well designed from every piece of it that yeah, you'd be kind of silly to miss out on it.
I hadn't seen that video. That's terrific.
Yeah, especially how she ends. You'd be silly to miss out on it. You gotta love Sandy's, and we really enjoyed working with them and the Community Land Trust in Muskoka. They were very thoughtful folks. We would do a testimonial for them too.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's a really good point. One of the things we haven't touched on, I alluded to a little bit in the industry expert slide, is this really is a course for anyone across the country working in any sized community. So Muskoka is a very small place compared to a Toronto, a Calgary, or a Vancouver. But again, it's that mix of more rural-ish and more urban-ish places coming together and really learning from each other. So if you're thinking of attending and you're from a smaller place, please do, because your experience adds value and vice versa in terms of takeaways from larger places. So there's that interplay between large and small city centers and municipal centers as well.
Did you see Salima's question? Very interesting. I work alongside transportation and housing, not in either one directly, but both are significantly tied to the work I do. Wondering what your thoughts are on this.
Should I dive in first?
Sure.
My thought is yes, this is probably a course for you. Because it really, and Sandy alluded to this a bit in her testimonial, it's really a systems-based approach. So if you are working on things that touch housing and that touch transportation, the learnings and the expertise that we'll provide, as well as the cohort, I think will definitely be something that you can take back. Salima, if you feel comfortable, you could turn on, we can unpin Karen and I. Why don't we do that? Let's unpin us and get everybody up, and anyone who feels like turning on their camera and telling us a bit more about themselves. Salima, I don't know if you want to tell us a bit more about the work you do specifically, but it would be great to flesh out that question a little bit. If not, that's okay.
Yeah, I'll keep my video off though. So I'm in the Poverty Reduction Office at the City of Toronto, in the policy shop there. And so the poverty reduction strategy at the City of Toronto has 6 pillars, 2 of them being housing and transportation. So to my question, I don't work within either housing or transportation, but that systems-based piece, a lot of the work I do at the moment is around inclusive economic development. You know, I mentioned in the chat as well, I was really happy. I was actually going to ask a question about community land trusts, which in that, how much of a part does it play in the course? And it was nice to see that the person in the video was from the Muskoka CLT. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And currently building out an inclusive economic development framework for the city as a whole.
That's great. So is that because as we stressed earlier, and this is just, it's really important that each learner comes with a specific project, because we really do spend a lot of time on the project. So would you bring this? Would your project potentially that you'd bring to the course be this inclusive economic development strategy?
Yes, that's the one I'd have in mind.
Great. Yeah, and then obviously housing and transportation fits directly that. Yeah, I see that as being a really good fit. And again, the experts who we'll have and the 3 of us ourselves will be delivering content towards the projects that we know folks are working on. So it really is tailored towards the projects. That's why we have all this like lead up and register and show us here. There's a lot of lead up before the course actually starts, so we can deeply understand what you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, many of these experts, their overall goal is poverty reduction and inclusive economic development, even if their means to get there is, you know, more equitable transportation or housing. So, you know, I think we'll find a lot of synergies there. Yeah, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe similar to Salima, but different. So I work for Durham Region, and I'm the Director of Environment and Climate.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, nice to see you again, Karen and Lisa. So yeah, I guess like similar in that I work quite closely with housing colleagues that are on the housing side, affordable housing redevelopment, trans-oriented development, and things like that. But yeah, maybe not directly. Like projects that I'm thinking about that could be relevant would be like we're doing a lot of work on, say, district energy planning in trans-oriented development areas along the Go East to Lakeshore East corridor through Durham Region. So that could be potentially of interest. We're also doing a lot of properties that we own that we're kind of redeveloping into mixed use affordable housing. And there's a lot of challenge that we're having, even internally and politically, around getting alignment around sustainability being continuing to be an important objective in those conversations. Like that perceived tension between sustainability and affordability is really pretty acute right now. So I think those are a couple thoughts of projects. Maybe I just want to get your thoughts on, you see that those being potentially aligned and this program being of support for that?
Yeah, well, I can speak from my perspective. I know the work you guys do in Durham Region is an award-winning region in many aspects, especially in your work on resilience, right, and sustainability. And but if you can't get the whole ship, all the crew members on board, you're not gonna be able to turn the boat around. So that what we really want to do is help you work across those silos and find the language and the tools to speak to the transportation and housing people in your area to have that more holistic approach to pushing change in the region.
Yeah, and I'll just add, of the two projects, I think the one, I mean, either one, obviously, depending on it's whatever you think is more important in your professional development and in your community's development. The one that might be a better fit is the redeveloping your own properties, because we'll have housing experts, we'll have finance experts, and that question, and also that's the work I do every day, not my own property, but BC Builds takes public land and builds housing across the province, working in partnership with municipalities, and that there needn't be a trade-off between sustainability and housing development, and I think pushing into wanting to understand what some of those things are, the barriers that you're facing, and then we can, together with you and the other learners, start to unpack those and then look for solutions. So yeah, I think either of those projects would be an interesting fit. The district energy planning in the TOD areas, that might be a really interesting conversation to have with Charles, who's coming from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank as well.
Right. Well, they're who we're hoping is going to finance this project that I'm working on. So it would have actually strategically might be good to get an in with him. No, thanks. Yeah, I on the affordable housing redevelopment, I think I would. It's because it's not my project. I'd want to have a colleague join me, I think. But whereas the district energy one is more my baby, if you will. So I'll give that some thought, and that might be whether I can get someone to join me might sort of decide which one I choose, if you will.
Right. You know what, that's great. And that's a really good segue. And we actually really encourage people to come in teams if possible. We have a group discount. So if 2 or more people sign up, it's 25% off the course. The groups that come in teams seem to have a bit of a richer experience than those who come alone. Nothing against coming alone, because then you're already part of a cohort and you'll get your own team within the cohort, but both work. But the groups that have come, like Sandy, who did that testimonial, came with one of her colleagues, Melinda, and the two of them had that ability to reflect together on their specific projects in the context of the rest of the learning. So
yeah, we also had another team come where they did 2 separate projects within the same region, but they decided to split up and do their own thing. So, but they also had each other to bounce ideas off of. So that worked really well too. I see Jessica has a question. Approval, is there approval criteria in place for those that apply? Should I be highlighting certain parts of my experience in my application? What we really look at is the project and what you're working on. What's in front of you right now? And, we have people that are doing a PhD dissertation or they're interested in affordable housing. That's great. That might not be the right thing for this program because you're just sitting down and hammering out, pathways forward for a specific thing. And so it's that's what we'd like to see in the application is that you have, it's not so much what your experience is, but what you're working on right now is really important to us.
And just the follow-up question, Jessica, it's a really good one. What if you're a team of colleagues from the region, but actually work for 2 different municipalities? If you submit yourselves as a team to us, wanting that group discount on one project, no problem. That's the best kind of team in some ways, to have folks from 2 different municipalities, but within the same region working together. So yeah, absolutely.
I want to make sure you're aware that we have opportunities to ask follow-up questions. So Magda can post a link in the chat to schedule follow-up meetings. And then I also want to introduce Gabriela, who's been sitting here with us. She's our senior education officer, and she manages the one-on-one meetings.
Yes, hi everyone. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce myself. I specialize in educational development, continuing professional learning, and instructional design. I oversee the School of Cities professional programs, and I'm here to support you with any question you may have related to your project, related to the program. So please feel free to reach out. I will gladly hop on a call with you and to address any questions that you may have about the program. So I hope to see all of you, or most of you, soon.
Any other questions? And feel free to unmute yourself and just jump in.
And Magda's just put in the chat Gabriela's Calendly, so you can just go and schedule a follow-up meeting with her if you don't want to ask a question in this setting, or if you've got more questions coming out of it. Gabriela's wonderful, and she's happy to meet with all of you. And yeah, the link's now there in the chat that you can grab.
So just a couple, as you're thinking about your last questions, I'm going to just remind you of a couple things. The application deadline is September 10th. There's a link, or will be a link in the chat to the application deadline and the program website. We do have an early bird promotion for early registrants. And that's September 1st. And you save $500 by doing that. So, and we do also have this discount for teams that apply. So this would be a good time to reach out to your colleagues and see if they want to come along if you're thinking about joining us. More questions?
This is Salima again, could you share a bit more about the week-to-week time commitment, sort of out of class, quote unquote, work and homework?
Yeah. Great question. So, I mean, it's kind of up to you, right? But in terms of the formal class, it's in total, it's about 24 hours. We start online to get everybody rolling, get them familiar with each other. Then we have the 2 intense days together, October 20th and 21st. Then, and then so that's a big time commitment right there, almost two full days. And then you go off and we'll be attending online sessions. These are spaced out a little bit because we wanted to give you time in between the expert sessions to reflect, to think about your next steps, and we'll have coaching available if you want. It's an optional coaching, but you can reach out to me or Lisa or staff to say, hey, I'm stuck, or I didn't quite get that point, or I need more resources on X, Y, or Z. And we're here to help you in those kinds of off weeks. Most of the sessions have a little bit of reading assigned. It's not mandatory. You're not quizzed on it, but it's great if you have an hour to prep for the folks that are coming in, and then you may want to take some time afterwards to reflect. That we have a workbook that goes with the program that will give you questions if you are committing the time to it, so you could spend a couple hours just kind of reflecting and figuring out what are the particular lessons for your project from that expert's wisdom that they imparted. So I would say, it's probably up to 4 hours a week if you were really, really ambitious, for the weeks, the 6 weeks of the program or so that it lasts, up to 4 hours. I would say some people do an hour, and then I would say some people did less than that in our experience, and still did fine. Until the presentation, when they crammed and put in a couple hours.
Yeah, the workbook is really, it's at a learner pace. So you don't have to hand it in. It's completely for yourself, but it's a really good resource for reflection. So you can basically, there's no required, the required, I guess, is those 2 in-person days, showing up for that, and then 2 hours, essentially every 2 weeks-ish. So that's the actual commitment time, but there's, more that you can put in, as Karen said. And I think most important though, and in the instance that you would need to miss one of the online sessions, we do record them. So you'll have access to that afterwards. We really, of course, encourage everyone to come, so you have that benefit of face-to-face time with each other and the experts. And then, yeah, they're probably, in fairness, the final presentations of the last cohort were really excellent. It's not very detailed. I think we gave people 5 minutes each, but there'll be a bit of time at the end to prepare your presentations. But again, the whole course leads up to that moment, so there shouldn't be, it's not hours and hours to put it together. Anything else that anyone would like to know before we wrap up our time together here?
Well, great to see everyone. And please feel free to reach out if you have more questions.
And we're also having another info session later in the summer, I believe. And so if you know colleagues or anyone that in your circles who might be interested, please send them to the info session. Maybe we can put the date and time of that in the chat. Yeah, we'll hopefully see some of you in our classroom, both online and virtual, or in person rather, in the fall.